Hey, so I wanted to come in and do the Booktube Newbie Tag. I have some notes. So I wanted to come and do this because, I am relatively new to Booktube. I only started my channel, was it a month ago? Less than a month ago? I didn't really want it to be my first video because I wanted to talk about the books I've been reading first. So, yeah. What I've been reading at the moment. So I finished reading Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, which was really, really good. Now this is one of my favourite ones, actually. And I also discovered this on my old bookshelves, which is like, is it a first edition? I'm not sure. But I noticed that this one doesn't have pictures in, whereas the one I have back in my flat in Manchester has pictures in. So what I'm going to do is when I go back up to Manchester, I think this weekend, I'm going to steal this and I'm going to take it back with me and compare it with the new one that I have. But what I also noticed is that it's by Obscurus Books, and obviously anyone who's watched Fantastic Beasts knows what the Obscurus is, so I was like, ooh, that's really cool. But this is from 2001, I think. Yeah, 2001, so I'm like, for 20 years she's known all this stuff, J.K. Rowling, so I thought that's really cool. And obviously, if I'm going to write a Harry Potter fanfic, which I've already got loads of ideas for, I've written them down in my notebook that I'm using as a stand. So, yes, definitely going to steal this back. And I'm also reading this now that I've finished Harry Potter, which I did have a couple of reservations about, even though I don't know anything about it, other than it's probably about straight people. And that it's really, really hyped. Apart from that, I didn't know anything about it. And so far, I'm actually really, really loving it. So, yeah, I think I'm going to devour this. But anyway, on to the tag. Also, I have a mug of tea. So I just tip down myself, because I'm a klutz. Right, okay, number one. Why did you start this channel? So I've been watching Booktube since I was about 16. And originally I didn't watch it thinking of starting a channel. I just enjoyed watching people talk about books. It's only maybe in the past 4 years I've been thinking about it. And I mean, if you're going to be on YouTube, I feel like it's your personality that people really watch. I mean, obviously they watch you to talk about books, but even like a year ago, I think if I'd started Booktube then, what's going on? My personality, I think because I got a job that actually I didn't really like working for BT, but I really liked the people that I worked with, and I just got way more confident around them. And I feel like if I'd started this channel like a year ago, well, actually, a year ago I was working there, but I was working loads more hours then, so I didn't have time. So, I feel like now I'm just much more comfortable talking to people, so I feel like I can actually talk about books in a way that I won't get all shy and clam up, and I won't just not make sense, hopefully. What else? Why did you start this channel? And yeah, I feel like I just want to talk about books to people because even though like I have friends from my literature degree, a lot of them don't read that much anymore, and so when I talk, when I meet up with them, like I don't just want to talk about all the books I've read, and they're like, well, I haven't read that, I don't have time to read, Ed, or they say they don't have time to read, and I actually want to, when I meet up with my friends, I want to chat with them. I don't just want to go off about books and that they don't know. So I feel like I'll actually be able to chat with people about books that they're interested in, or I can chat about books that they've read and I can have a discussion and stuff. So, yeah. And also, about 6 weeks ago, I was on one of Memento Mori. I was on one of his live streams, like not on it, just in the chat. And Adam, I was just like, I don't have any editing skills. should I start a channel? And then he was like, yeah. So I was like coming up with names with him because my old name on YouTube was Gagging For It, which was kind of a troll account. I mean, I wasn't a mean troll, I was just like a sassy troll. But then I've been on Booktube for years with that pseudonym. So I wasn't really a troll. Like, I wouldn't troll most of the literature people, but I'd troll like on Wendy Williams pages and stuff. So he said, no, don't use your real name. Use like, just have like Gagging for Lit. I like that. So I was like, yes, I'm going to keep Gagging for Lit, even though it's a kind of weird name, but I actually really like it. So my name is Edward/Ed, whatever. Edward's fine. Or Ed. Actually, Ed's more personable. So Ed, you can call me Ed if you care. So he was actually like the one giving me a nudge to start this channel. So thank you, Adam, if you're watching this. You're probably not, because you blocked me. Yes, he blocked me. Memento Mori blocked me from his live streams. I think it was because on that live stream, there were loads of just bots spamming the live stream. And this bot kept saying, watch this channel, watch this channel, watch this music video or something. So I was like spamming them back saying, I've seen it, now like fuck off or whatever. So he blocked me, I guess accidentally thinking that I was a spam bot when I wasn't. So Adam, if you're watching this, unblock me please. But yeah, I love Adam from Memento Mori. So he kind of gave me the nudge to start the channel. Right, question 2, because it's been 7 minutes. What can you bring to Booktube? I can bring my looks for as long as they last. I can bring baked goods. I can bring some bitchiness, some sass. I can bring white privilege. I can bring my gayness. I can bring... I like cooking, so I might do some cooking videos sometimes. I can bring nice surroundings, because since I moved into my flat last October, I finished decorating my flat now, so sometime maybe I'll show you a flat tour or something. And I can bring... I don't know, I feel like I read like mainly literary fiction, so a lot of people I watch on Booktube read similar stuff, but sometimes when people do reviews they like to whitewash and they like to tone things down, and I'm not really... I mean, it's nice, you know, obviously you want to be fair to a book, but I'm not interested in, you know, beating about the bush, because, you know, people might only have 10 minutes to watch a channel, and I'm not going to filibuster and say I love a book when I don't. Right, 3. What are you most excited about starting Booktube? The interactions with people. I feel like obviously, you know, when I'm commenting on someone's channel, you know, you don't really, I mean, you get to know them through watching them a little bit, but when they comment, normally, you know, if they have more comments to deal with, they're just like, yeah, thanks, bye, which is fine, but I feel like I'll get more interaction with people, and I feel like, you know, obviously on, you know, Booktube is all about forming a kind of community, so I feel like it's interesting just seeing how people react, how people comment on people's channels. So someone might comment on like one channel a particular way, and then based on like someone's sense of humour, and they'll comment on someone else's channel a completely different way, because you know, the energy you give off, people kind of feed back to you. So I'm kind of excited for that kind of thing, I guess. Like if you make a joke, people in the comments might be like, haha, or lol, or yeah, that's funny. Whereas on another channel where maybe someone just isn't that funny and they talk more seriously, or they're talking about something else, people will reply more seriously. So, I mean, obviously I like to be a bit serious sometimes, but I'm just excited for the interaction and the kind of community aspect of it. Why do you love reading? I love reading just because, I mean, obviously now we live in, you know, a post-modern world, and there's just so much detritus and BS. I like to just get into a book, and when you're with a book, you can take it at your own pace. Well, I mean, I don't listen to audiobooks because I like to take it at my own pace. You can take it at your own pace, and it is just you and the page. And even when you're watching a movie, even if you're watching it by yourself, you can get bored, and things can distract you just in life. Whereas in a book, I find it's just easier to shut off and focus on that book. And also, even with like movies, like I love movies, but a movie is kind of like a community project. There's like hundreds and thousands of people who work on that movie. Whereas with a book, most of the time it is just that one author and, you know, maybe a couple of editors or something that kind of influence what you're reading. So with a book, when you're really in a book, you get the sense that it's a deeper connection with something, because in a book, even if it's like an eye narrator, even though it's not a person, because you're spending, I don't know, like 16 hours with this person reading something that's been thought out and considered, I feel like you can just interact with a kind of human on a level that you don't really get elsewhere, which sounds quite odd, but, you know, books are written by people, so books are about the world, so you kind of just experience the world in this like intense way that's wonderful and life-changing, if you're reading a good book, that is. Otherwise, if you're spending 16 hours with someone who's just awful and doesn't know what they're saying, you can get pretty pissed off. Right, okay, next question. What got you into reading? Okay, so, I mean, I've loved reading all my life, but I particularly got into reading when I finished my GCSEs. So I always kind of read, like, as a child I read, and I guess I read quite a lot, but I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm a bookish child. You know, I don't talk to anyone, I sit in the corner and read, that's me. That wasn't me. I guess I was kind of extroverted as a child, actually, but I was introverted too, because I liked reading on my own as well, and I liked just playing in my room on my own for hours and hours and hours, so not sure. But I always read, but I just didn't think about it too much, which I think as a child is possibly the best way to be. So I liked Enid Blyton. Actually, maybe I'll do another video on childhood books I liked, but I liked Dick King-Smith, stuff like that. And I also liked Philippa Gregory. I mentioned her a little bit in some other videos, but I'm going to talk about maybe books I liked as a kid more in another video. But I really got into reading when I was about 16, after I finished my GCSEs, and we went on a family holiday to St Ives in Cornwall, and, you know, we just go to the beach all day, and I had all these textbooks, no, not textbooks, they were like books on the syllabus for A-level, and they had books where, you know, you had a reading list, and you could read like 12 books or something, and then you just had to select one that you were going to, you know, write as part of your essay. So I literally read like all the books I could, and just really, really loved them, and I loved the way they were getting me to think about the world and society, and the way, like, even though you can read a history book on World War One, when you read a novel, you know, it can do all the stuff that these history books are doing, but they can actually put you in that situation yourself, and they can make you question that situation the way you would do just if you were reading a textbook. Like, to use a war novel as an example, like, they can give you, you know, a character, you know, like in like Regeneration by Pat Barker. That was one of the books that really got me into reading. You know, that one of the main characters is Billy Pryor, who's like a working class soldier, and he's got asthma. And, you know, in the history books, they don't really tell you about, you know, they wouldn't choose a main person to talk about who has asthma, because obviously he's not the ideal soldier and he's not one of the main soldiers. So I love that books can get under your skin. You know, I was getting into Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I liked Cloud Atlas by David Mitchell. I liked Handmaid's Tale. I liked Gregory Maguire. I liked Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. Yeah, all those sorts of books I loved. So that was the year I got into. That was the summer I got into reading, or like when I thought, you know, this is something that I'm gonna have as part of my life forever. What would you ask your favourite booktubers? And I put a slash. Who are your favourite booktubers? Because I don't know what I'd ask my favourite booktubers. How are you? What's your day going like? That's probably what I'd ask them. Who are my favourite booktubers? So, Jen Campbell, I love her videos. I love her videos talking about poetry, history of fairy tales, just what she's reading, anything she's doing. Love her. I like Memento Mori, Adam. I like, I guess I like Strip Cavalier. I like KD Books recently. I like GK Reads recently. Who else? Mercy's Bookish Musing. She's one of my favourite booktubers. I've been watching her for like years and years and years. Who else? Hannah Tay. But sometimes you go through phases where you watch people because normally people like just change their content from time to time because that's natural. So sometimes, you know, I might want to read this, you know, no, I might want to watch these people like religiously for 6 months. And then instead of talking about Harry Potter or instead of talking about poetry, they might be more interested in reading crime novels, and I'm less interested in that, so don't really care. So, but I can always come back to them. So, yeah, I guess those are my favourite booktubers at the moment that I can think of. But another favourite booktube I had was called favourite booktuber was Conrad Reads, or 7 Days at Sea. He changed his name to, or no, Conrad Reads. It was Just a Dust Jacket. That was his name on BookTube. But he had like this lovely southern drawl from, you know, he was from the South in America, and I loved his videos. He didn't get on camera very much, but he just like spoke about these books he loved, and he just spoke so eloquently. And one day he just deleted his channel or whatever, and I don't know, I'm just like, oh, Conrad, are you there? Are you there? So yeah, I really missed his channels, but so many books I picked up that I picked up because of him. Right. What challenges do you think will be the hardest to overcome on BookTube? I guess standing out as a white gay booktuber because they're everywhere. And keeping people coming back to your channel, I guess, is the hardest thing to overcome because sometimes you see like people who have a channel and, you know, they blow up and they all of a sudden get like 200,000 views, and then, you know, 2 weeks later they're struggling to get more than 1,000 views because people aren't really interested. Which, I mean, 1,000 views is still good, but... Sorry, my dad was in the garden. I was like, are you eavesdropping? But now I've closed the window, so he can't. Being at home with my parents. So, what was I saying? What challenges do you think? Yeah, as a personal challenge, it will be just to keep this channel going. I mean, at the moment I'm loving it. I have loads and loads and loads and loads of ideas because, you know, I've had ideas for videos for like years and years. So this is something I want to do long term. But when I had a writing blog, it was just to help keep me motivated to keep writing after I did my undergraduate degree. I mean, there was hardly any interaction on it, which I guess is partly my fault because I think unless you literally stalk people on WordPress, no one's going to notice you. And I was like, I'm not going to stalk people and be a fake bitch. So I like would comment here and there on, you know, a post I liked, but really it was just hard to get into. And it was quite hard to be personal in a blog because you're so conscious of what you're writing that sometimes your personality can't come through as much or as easily. Like, who wants to spend like 20 minutes reading a blog post when you can spend, you know, 5 minutes watching a YouTube video and get just as much out of a blog as a written blog as you can through the video, just because you can communicate so much just through your body language and face and how you say something. So already I prefer BookTube way more, and already I feel like even though I haven't had many comments, those comments I've had are way more interactive than the ones on WordPress, because whenever anyone would comment on WordPress, all they were doing was trying to sell you their book. And it got to a point after a year where this guy just kept haranguing me to have his book, and in the end he sent me it for free and was like, please do a review. And I was like, whatever. Yeah, it ended up getting a bit weird, so that was why I stopped that, because I was like, I'm sick of dealing with these weird people who just want to harangue you to buy their self-published book. I mean, and you know, when you self-publish, that can be great, but I'm like, mate, all you do is post a chapter of your book every single day. Like, no one wants to buy it really. Like, if they're going to buy it, they would have bought it already. And you know, just the writing was awful in a lot of these people's stuff. And yeah, so this guy just kept haranguing me to have his book, and in the end, I relented, and then he sent it to me, and it was awful. I haven't read it. I just read. I think I read the epigraph and his like acknowledgements, and in the acknowledgements, he was like thanking D.H. Lawrence and Friedrich Nietzsche. And actually, I might do a review of that book now because I feel like it would just be fun. And he didn't say I had to have a good review. He just said, you know, I'd love it if you did a review. But this guy was like an American professor, an English professor, and his writing was awful, so I might do a review of that. But obviously that'll be really catty and bitchy, but a review's a review, and I never wanted that book. He harangued me. And I wonder if he'll get in the comments and all of a sudden turn nasty and he'll be exposed. So maybe I'll do that if people are interested in that. But the book was called Table 4-1, if anyone is interested. Just look that up if you want to, because like I can smell an actual like narcissist from a mile away. Like I could just tell like this is a clinical narcissist. So those are the kinds of people you get on WordPress. So I mean, some people on WordPress maybe have a lush time, but not for me, babe. But I will link my blog below if you're that interested. Right, okay, and where do I read? Well, here I read in the conservatory, or I read out in the back garden, depending on what kind of day it is. So today I was reading in the conservatory, because there's loads of light, and I could shut the doors and listen to my music, and I'm not annoying anyone, and no one can bother me. But when I'm in my flat in Manchester, now that I've been in quarantine, I read in my living room. I read under my window on my corner sofa, and on my corner sofa I can just have all the books I want to read out next to me. I can have my laptop out by me if I need it. I can have like food and drinks on the coffee table. I can just spend hours and hours and hours reading it very, very comfortably. Very comfortably, I should say. I also normally I like reading in cafes, actually. That's my favourite thing to do. But I mean, obviously in quarantine I can't do that, which makes me so glad I bought my coffee machine at the end of third year. So now I can basically make my own cafe. So, yeah, what else? So that's where I normally read. But, I mean, apart from that, I'll read anywhere. Like, I read on my break at work if I have a job. I read on the bus if I have to get the bus. But now I have a car, so don't need to. Read on the train. Like, I read anywhere, really. Anywhere I can. Right. Sometimes I read in bed before I go to sleep, if I feel like it. Right. 9. What kinds of books do you like to read? So mainly literary fiction, if that doesn't sound too wankery. Yeah. Sometimes I read children's books. Like, I've been reading Harry Potter, but I feel like anyone can read Harry Potter. It doesn't matter what age you are. The Roald Dahl books are actually quite fun to read as an adult, just because now you realise how non-PC they are, and it's just fun sometimes to read them, because you're like, if he wrote this now, they wouldn't let him read it. They wouldn't let him write this now. Like, and even some stuff in Harry Potter, I'm like, you wouldn't get away with this now. Like the Dursleys, the NSPCC would be called, and they'd be like, no, Harry Potter would have PTSD and loads of issues from living with these people for 12 years, and now everyone would be triggered by it probably. But so yeah, it's really interesting sometimes returning to old children's books, especially things like Enid Blyton with like Dame Slap. Now she's not in it anymore, and they were like the characters Dick and Fanny, like their cousins. They won't be in it now. Now they'll be called something, you know, very PC. So yeah, sometimes it's fun to return to children's books as well. I also like a bit of fantasy. Like I read Lord of the Rings the other year and loved it. So I want to get a bit more into fantasy, but sometimes I like fantasy. Like I'm not, you know, hardcore. Well, I kind of am hardcore literary, but you know, I'll read a thriller if it's really good. I'll read horror if it's really good. I'll read a crime if it's really good. I'll read, I don't know, women's Mills and Boon stuff if it's a good read. I also really like poetry, so I'm going to be doing videos on poetry. I want to read, like, I want to go through reading all of Shakespeare's plays at some point, so I might do that. I like reading biographies and non-fiction stuff too, so yeah, I think that covers the new to Booktube tag. So yeah, that's it. Bye.